Woman walking her dog spots a strange item sticking out of its fur that stops her in her tracks. There are two kinds of pet owners, the ones that love walking their dogs and the ones that can't stand it. You can somewhat sympathize with the latter, especially if you've ever walked your pup on a cold winter's day. But between the quality time you get to spend with your pooch, the exercise, and the look of pure bliss on your pet's face, who could possibly say no to a walk? For Australian native Sally Watkinson, walking her pups was a regular part of her day and an ideal way to let her pets burn off some pent-up energy. Yet, after discovering a strange object lodged in one of her dog's fur, her leisurely morning walk turned into a frantic sprint to the nearest animal hospital. The Pooley's playful personality perhaps is what led Sally to adopt a couple of her own. In fact, the Melbourne, Australia native played proud parent to these two sweet Pooleys, Hugo and Cato. Sally knew that she could get a toy pooch or some designer breed. Aspiring pet owners will shell out thousands for Instagram-worthy pups, but she wasn't concerned with all that. Sally had her eye on one ruffled breed that wasn't designed for social media. The Pooley. Known for their tightly corded, dreadlock-like hair, these Hungarian sheepdogs have become popular pets across the world because of their gentle nature, but their high energy meant that Sally had her work cut out for her. Looking after one dog is hard enough, so with two energetic pups in her care, Watkinson knew she had to stay on top of their well-being. To this end, she made sure to take them on regular walks to give them a chance to stretch their legs. But one morning, Watkinson's walk with her beloved pups took an unusual turn. While Hugo and Cato would sometimes come to her with loose sticks or balls, this time one of the dogs returned with a find who had 4 legs of its own. Latched onto Cato's thick fur was a small animal, no bigger than a stuffed toy. But what was this tiny creature? A squirrel? A rat? Some kind of fluffy alien? As it turned out, the adorable hitchhiker was actually a baby possum. Though one would have expected a newborn possum such as this to have been terrified of Cato, it appeared that the dog's gentle demeanor and furry coat served as a welcome sight for the lonely newborn. In nature, baby possums typically latch onto their mother's back for months at a time, as even after being weaned, they're still too weak to fend for themselves. Then, one by one, they drop from their mother and strike out on their own. This newborn, however, seemed to have fallen off prematurely. With its mother nowhere to be found, the baby possum latched onto Cato, likely hoping that the larger creature would care for it. Yet this was potentially a catastrophe in the making, as dogs and possums aren't exactly known to get along. Even if Cato didn't realize the newborn was clinging to his fur, Hugo would certainly spot the tiny hitchhiker sooner or later. Sure enough, the Pooleys caught on to the baby possum's presence, though their reaction took Watkinson completely by surprise. Instead of working themselves into a frenzy, Hugo and Cato simply ignored her. Hugo and Cato seemed to barely notice it was there, Watkinson later wrote in a Facebook post. It's most surprising that Hugo is not barking frantically at it. Apparently, Cato was seemingly oblivious also. But as adorable as the scene was, Watkinson knew that the baby possum couldn't hang around forever. Cato wasn't equipped to look after the newborn, and without proper care, the tiny creature likely wouldn't survive the night. Watkinson phoned a local animal rescue, who was more than happy to nurse the baby back to health. But how would they get her there? The possum refused to let go of Cato's fur, and if given the chance to sit down in the car, the large dog would likely squish her. And so, Watkinson did the very thing she and her pups had set out to do that morning: walk. With the possum hanging on with all its might, Cato and Hugo bounded down the road for the rescue center. Once there, the rescue workers carefully removed the newborn from Cato's fur and took her into their care. The tiny possum was exhausted, though Watkinson was confident she'd make a full recovery. "I think she'll be okay," Watkinson wrote. "She's probably not quite weaned yet, but seemed well enough, and was clinging on for dear life. I think she found the right dog for that. Her eyes were pretty bright still. But the story of Cato and his possum-loving ways didn't end there. The very next day, Watkinson arrived to pick her pup up at a friend's house, only to find yet another baby possum clinging to his fur. This one was annoying him a bit, as it seemed to be digging in. Hugo was still ignoring it, Watkinson shared in disbelief. This time, the vet nurse nearly fell off her chair when we turned up. Believing the two newborns to be siblings, Watkinson requested that the Animal Rescue Center keep an eye out for any adult possums missing their young. It's her hope that the baby possums can one day be reunited with their mother.